Hi, thanks for watching. The cricket just keeps on coming. Soon we've got a series that I'll be talking about today. Starts on New Year's Eve between Pakistan and Sri Lanka in the UAE, and means all 8 teams will be playing cricket at the same time, which is nice. Or all 8 major teams, I should say. So let's talk about Pakistan. We actually been stuck. We might. No, we'll start with Pakistan, and we'll move on to Sri Lanka in a moment. Pakistan last was seen against South Africa in the UAE. They had seemed to find a new, I'm going to talk about a couple of new Pakistan players, a new opening combination in Shan Masood and Karam Manzoor. They put on a good stand. I don't have it in front of me, I'm afraid, but a 100 plus stand in the first test against South Africa. Obviously, a very good pace attack, even though it's in Asia, though we're playing in Asia now. Um, and everything looked rosy for Pakistan. They dropped Mohammad Hafiz, which I thought was an interesting move. Probably not one I would have taken, especially against South Africa with the frailty potentially of the left-hander opener Smith against Hafiz with his off breaks. But nevertheless, they made the move. I want to talk about both these guys because I think it's a fluke. I don't think that they're for real. I don't think you should trust them going forward for Pakistan. But let's talk about a couple of new players. So Karam Manzoor has a first-class average of 39.77 in 107 matches, a lot of matches, averaging under 40 and scoring in just a quarter of his innings, 25.9%, which is very poor as well. He's 27, so there's an argument to be made that maybe he's at his peak and he's found another level of play. Although he'd need to just to be test standard, frankly, because again, these are first class numbers playing test attacks. You should expect them to be discounted a little bit. So again, 107 matches is a lot. So at best, I think Karam Manzoor is going to be a borderline test opener. Not likely to be massively tested in this series, I might add. Obviously, Sri Lanka, as I've spoken about before, have big time pace bowling problems. But I think that long term, looking at spotlighting that player, I don't think it's going to be a great career. Shan Masood is actually a bit younger. He's 24 years of age. But his first class record is very, very poor. He has 3 centuries in 94 innings. 94 innings, 3 centuries. It's the kind of thing you'd expect from perhaps even a first class number 8, honestly, to be flouting, so to speak, to have on his record. 3 in 94 is not good at all. His first class average is 34.82. So again, a good number 8, maybe at test level, kind of that's sort of those numbers we're looking at. Possibly a wicket keeper. That's the kind of thing I'd expect from a wicket keeper, not an opening batsman. So when Pakistan are getting a bit old, Misbah al-Haq, obviously Yunus Khan, I'll talk about in a second. So they're looking for some of these young players to come through. I don't think this opening combination is going to be it. Yunus Khan, we're going to talk about a bit. These Sri Lanka Pakistan series are quite frequent. Since 2009, they've played each other 11 times. And they're very high scoring games generally, or matches generally. They've had 7 draws in those 11 matches. The batting average overall is 38.4. So lots of runs. Yunus Khan, again, I always talk about him with Pakistan. The most consistent source of runs for Pakistan. He's fading a little bit. A little known fact is that Yunus Khan had 7 straight years of averaging over 50, in fact over 51. For 7 straight years, so every year he averaged over 50, with a very impressive achievement. To be fair, Pakistan played less cricket than most other nations, but even so, one of the most wildly underappreciated players in the game. But the last 2 years, age has started to catch up with him. He's in his mid-30s now. His average is 41.31, scoring in just 25% of his innings and a century every 12 innings. It's really the centuries that are keeping that average looking pretty okay. The score percentage at 1 at 4, 25% is not good. And when you consider that he plays a lot in Asia, obviously, again, it makes it look even worse. So Yunus Khan is a fading star, and one of the questions is going to be where Pakistan's runs are going to come from. We know Sri Lanka have some problems with the pace bowling side of things. But on the spin bowling side of things are a lot rosier. Obviously, everyone by now has heard about Rangana Harath. Look, as I said before, Sri Lanka haven't played since January in significant test matches. So, at any rate, I'll come back to that later on. When this series starts, Harath will be actually 36 years old. But bear in mind, he is a slow bowler, and recently he's been as good as anyone. I mean, really better than Ajmal also in this series. I think his numbers are shading him. Starting with the win against South Africa, you might remember Sri Lanka actually famously and shockingly won the second test in South Africa a couple of years ago. He's taking 6.4 wickets a match. Astronomically good numbers. 6.4 is serious stuff. At 22.44, obviously a very good average. But the number of wickets, the amount he bowls, an economy rate of 2.64 in his last 4-day matches. So we're talking about a significant slice of cricket. Um, Probably an excellent argument to say he's the best bowler in the world. Obviously, someone like Stein comes in and there's a lot more impact, and you see that with all the double-figure scores that South Africa's opponents tend to amass. But those numbers will take pride of place with anyone in history, including Muralitharan, his predecessor. Again, might not quite the sort of startling, oh my god, this is happening, and he's got very little support. You got to remember that. So the guy on the other end is normally not very good, and Jayawadena has been sort of a little bit slow on the trigger in bringing him into games, which is bizarre. They play so much in Asia. He's so obviously their best bowler, and they rely on him pretty much exclusively for wickets. Hopefully Angelo Matthews will have a quicker draw, so he's now taking over, and we'll see how his style of captaincy also looks in this series. Sangakkara has absolutely dominated Pakistan. He's another guy that in one of my other previews I've talked about. The bloom is coming off the rose a little bit for Kumar Sangakkara. I remember I thought it was against, I can't remember who it was against, New Zealand possibly even Australia. I was previewing last year now, and was talking about how his numbers against pace have been relatively poor in recent history against teams with predominantly pace attacks. But against slow bowling attacks, A-OK, no problem at all. His average is 92.7 in the last 11 matches against Pakistan. 57% of the time he makes a score. Century every 3.5 innings, so pretty much covering all the bases. Not only does he make big scores, and his highest was 211 against these guys, but he also makes scores extremely consistently, and there's no reason to believe that won't continue here. Maybe not to the degree of 92.7, as I say, his best is behind him, but certainly to have a major impact in this series. But that's not really the big story for Sri Lanka. The big story for Sri Lanka is looking at the new wave. They're losing Jayawadena very soon. They're probably going to lose Sangakkara pretty soon. They've just lost Dilshan. He retired over the course of the last 12 months, and before they've played, again, these meaningful test matches. Dinesh Chandimal is the big new thing, and he's really got to come off. In his first 7 tests, admittedly with Bangladesh thrown in there, averaging 58.3, scoring in half of his innings with a 6 century rate, so a couple of centuries under his belt already. He looks great, looks like a very flexible player, probably ideally at 5'6", so a really good player of slow bowling. He may have to bat higher than that ultimately, but this will be a good chance to see him sort of in his natural environment. He'll be in Asia, he'll be playing a lot of slow bowling, which is what he wants to be doing, and batting at 5 and 6 underneath Sangakkara and Jayawadena. So no excuses. I know he's going to be playing a really good slow bowling attack, but you've got to bear in mind, Abdur Rahman, not quite the bowler perhaps he's looked recently. Ajmal will be a challenge, but if you're one of the hot new prospects in world cricket, like Darren Bravo, who did so much damage recently, I was very happy to see that against New Zealand, or the Indian batsman, you've got to perform. And I think with Chandimal, he's going to be thrust into that spotlight pretty quickly. First class average is extremely strong, 56.61. Admittedly in a weak competition in Sri Lanka, but he'll be one of the most important players to watch. So looking at all those numbers, a lot of the numbers actually favour Sri Lanka here. It sort of surprised me when I was looking through this. It's pretty kind of Sri Lanka. But it's in the UAE, and I spoke in the South Africa preview that this is a bit of a fortress. They did lose for the first time in the UAE in 3 or 4 years. But I don't expect them to lose again here. Again, victories are very hard to pry out in this part of the world. Pakistan got a very good captain in Misbah al-Haq against a very inexperienced one in Angelo Matthews, and it's sort of arguable whether he should be even playing Test cricket. Matthews, it's a story for another day, I guess. But that might also be a bit of an edge for Pakistan. I'm not really prepared. Another thing that might be an edge in terms of intangibles is Sri Lanka's long layoff without playing cricket. They could easily, in fact, that's how I see the series going. That first test could be a real shock. They could get beaten very heavily, and then you'll see them come back in the series and maybe even dominate a draw or two. But a draw, I think they will ultimately be. I don't think Herat's going to be enough to get the necessary wickets. And I'm picking Pakistan to win this 3-test series, 1-0. Again, a lot of cricket on. I think we've got New Zealand and India to talk about over in the new year. So we'll have a chat about that as well and what's going on. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.